All right, so today we're talking about something that I'm not even enthusiastic to talk about, really. It doesn't have, there's no positive outcome of this Let's Talk. It's just, or a positive conclusion or something like that. It's just, what do they call that? It's just an update on a series of unfortunate events. All right, so it begins, if you've seen the title to the video, then you kind of know what we're talking about. We refer to it as the Radha Damodara court case. And it began in 2006. So it's a court case that's been going on for 13 years. Now, some of you out there may have young householders, may have some children, 12 or 13 years old. Mm-hmm. And you know that's a long time if you've been raising children. And now imagine there's a court case going on where ISKCON is suing Sri Sri Radha Damodara Thakura. Now, in Vrindavan, Thakur refers to the deity, Thakurji. So the court case is a lawsuit against the deities of Sri Sri Radha Damodara. And that is at the temple of Jiva Goswami. And at that temple is also the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And most importantly for all of us, although all those things are important, Jiva Goswami's temple, his deities, Radha Damodar, Kaviraj Goswami's deities are there, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, etc. The Govardhan Shila, where Krishna himself appeared, placed his foot imprint into a large stone from Govardhan and gave it to Sanatan Goswami. There's a lot of Gaudiya history there, making it amongst Gaudiya Vaiṣṇavas almost the single most important temple in Vrindavan. But most important to most of us is the fact that Srila Prabhupada lived there for many years. And that was the place that came to be known as his Bhajan Kutir. So I'm going to begin the story from there, from 1977. Well, there's some backstory, what years he began to occupy those rooms, etc., what type of an arrangement he had for those rooms. I'll mention that. But in 1977, I believe it was in May, Srila Prabhupada decided that he wanted to begin, or he wanted the devotees to begin the worship in his Bhajan Kutir. Mm-hmm. So at one point, he called Gargamuni Swami. And he told Gargamuni Swami that he wanted to have a meeting with him. He wanted him to come and he would explain what he wanted. So at that day, then Gargamuni went to one of the brahmacharis who he knew quite well, whose name was Riksharaj. And Riksharaj and I had been partners, you'd say, traveling through the parts of the Middle East and preaching in North Africa. And so he said to Riksharaj, oh, there's going to be a meeting with Prabhupada. He's going to tell us about the starting the puja in his Bhajan Kutir at Radha Damodar. So why don't you get Jagat Guru Swami and come along to that meeting? So it was the next day or that day in the afternoon. We went to a meeting in Srila Prabhupada's room. And he described what he wanted to go on there. He told us very much of the detail. Things like how he wanted an inventory on all the pots, pans, and thalis, and deepams, and cushions, and tables, and chairs. Whatever was in there, he wanted an inventory on that. more importantly, he told us how the service was to go on, which included even he told us what store to go to in the bazaar where he used to go and buy his vegetables. Mm-hmm. He wanted us to go and buy from that same person. And amazing, it's what, 42, almost 42 years later, whatever. And that same vegetable shop is still there. You know, things change very slowly in Vrindavan, you know.
Right.
So, and what to cook, when, what time to cook it, all these different things, how to make the offering. And this was at the time there were only his disciples in the Krishna consciousness movement in ISKCON. There was nobody else there that wasn't his disciple or aspiring disciple. Mm-hmm. So he wanted his disciples to do these services. And there are more of the details, but that's not the most important part of this conversation. So anyway, that began in May. And so it ended up that Gargamuni had some other things he had to take care of. And so the service was then left to myself and Riksharaj. And we began by renovating the rooms, patching up the floors, painting them, getting them all fixed up. So let me just put two pictures up on the screen here, just so devotees can refresh their minds. This is a picture in the kitchen. It doesn't show the whole kitchen, but there were two rooms here that we're talking about, and one was referred to the kitchen. And here is a seat that Srila Prabhupada used to sit on, and looking out that window, he would see the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And he mentioned at some particular point that seeing the samadhi of Rupa Goswami, he was inspired or enthused to come to the West. So then the other room referred to as his sleeping room. And this is only showing one corner. And if you visit those rooms today, you'll see that there's a bed in that very same corner. But you can see here the walls are very much in need of some repairs. Mm. And so that's pretty much the way it was. And then Riksharaj and I started, and it just took a few days, and we got everything repaired. And then we started that service, following all the details of what His Divine Grace had said. So over time, very shortly after that, the service passed to another devotee who was a householder. And after that, it passed to somebody else, and it's been passing hands for 40-some years. Again, that's not the most important part of the story. So in the beginning, when Srila Prabhupada moved to those rooms, he paid a rent. He had a rental agreement, and it just so happens that the rental agreement was on what's known as a 100-rupee stamp paper. Hmm. Well, the way it works in India, depending on what kind of contract you have to buy what's called a stamp paper from the government.
Right.
And depending on how much the cost of that paper, well, that also coincides to the validity of the agreement. In other words, if you want to have just an agreement that you and I are going to do something next week, et cetera, then you get a 50 or 100 rupee stamp paper, and the validity of that is up to 6 months. Mm-hmm. But then after that 6 months, that paper has no validity. So originally, Srila Prabhupada had a stamp paper agreement, but it had a very less validity. Mm. And someone might say, well, why did they do that? And say, well, both parties were pretty poor at the time. The temple, Radha Damodara, the management, they didn't have much money. Srila Prabhupada, he didn't have much money. And it was more or less a gentleman's agreement anyway.
Right.
You see. All right, so there's a lot of detail, and time goes by over the years, and Srila Prabhupada goes to the West and comes back, and he did spend some time there. There are pictures of His Divine Grace there in those rooms. Devotees that were with him at that time will remember it very well. Mm-hmm. They stayed in other places, and he lived in his rooms at Radha Damodara. And this is long before even the land was purchased where the present Krishna Balaram temple is. All right, so there's a history to their relationship, and it runs sweet, you see. And Prabhupada lived there long before any of us knew him, long before he came to the West. He watched the family grow there. He was pretty much just like a family member, like a grandfather in the family. And so what happened is, after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, his instructions of how the worship was to be done and by who pretty much just disintegrated until not even probably 10%, or probably you could say maybe 30% of his instructions were followed. The key instructions were not being followed at all. And the key instruction was that he wanted this worship to be done by his disciples. Now, amazingly enough, 40 years later, there are still thousands of Prabhupada disciples on the planet somewhere. But over the years, the worship has been just assigned to, I hate to say this kind of a word because it's certainly not true in maybe every case, but somebody at the temple that they just can't figure out what to do with them, in other words, somebody who's almost on the flunky list, they assign them from Krishna Balaram temple to go down and take care of the Bhajan Kutir and to make the to make the noon offering and to do whatever service is going to be done down there. I mean, the number of times that I've seen young brahmacharis in there, usually from Bengali boys or something like that, the number of times that I've seen people, the pujari, who are supposed to be the pujaris, sitting in there, leaning up against the wall in either the kitchen or the darshan room, not Skyping, but texting
on phones. Yeah,
texting. I've even seen them play video games on their phones, and so the standard declined, and it appeared as if, well, nobody's really interested in this. It's more like a burden than a privilege or an opportunity. All right, so it just so happens that I have also been very close to the Radha Damodara Goswami family since as far back as I can remember, back into the 70s, when I was 77, when I first had some service there. And I maintained my friendship and relationship with that family over the years. So much so to the point now that I have rooms there in Radha Damodara, which previously, before Srila Prabhupada occupied the two rooms that we just showed on the screen, the downstairs room, he had two rooms on the upstairs. And so those two rooms that he occupied originally have been given to me. And anyway, that's another part of the story. But so after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, the idea of him paying rent on those rooms changed. And it was no longer a rent. And then the Krishna Balaram Temple, as the representative of ISKCON, began to pay a monthly fee for the right of seva in order to continue to occupy those rooms, but for the sole purpose of the service of Srila Prabhupada. And in What year did they stop paying the rent?
I think it was 2005, I think it was.
Yeah, so around 2005, in 2005, the rent was 1,000 rupees a month. So, Giri, can you give us a dollar figure?
Oh.
I think in 2005, that was around $25 a month.
Like that, yeah.
$25 a month. Well, in 2005, for reasons unbeknown to any of us, including the management of Krishna Balaram Temple, other than just totally spacing it out, they stopped paying the rent for 2 years. Now, a lot of us are over here in the Western world, and those of you who live over here and rent an apartment. What happens to you when you stop paying the rent for 2 months? What to speak of 2 years? Huh? Mm-hmm. What happens? Do you have such a nice landlord that they just tolerate and tolerate and tolerate and continue to pay the electric bill for you also because the temple pays the electric bill and you don't pay your rent in your apartment for 2 years and everything's just hunky-dory? Is that the way it works? Really? If so, I'm going to get me an apartment over here and stop paying the rent. No, you'll be out on the street. Boom. No consideration. Out the door. Well, like I said, for reasons unbeknown to anybody, except for they just spaced it out or really didn't care. And it's not that they weren't reminded. You see, devotees would come down and the management of the Radha Damodara temple would pull somebody aside and say, "Oh, could you please remind so-and-so, temple president, that the rent hasn't been paid in 3 months, then 6 months, then 9 months, then 1 year, a year and a half, finally 2 years, etc., etc." And then they began to pay the rent again, and I do believe they paid up their back rent. Well, rent was one thing, but attitude was another issue. And what to speak of then, you can even see it now. The overall attitude between particularly the management at Krishna Balaram Temple, their attitude towards the Goswami family. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the attitude was basically, we have nothing good to say. We only have bad things to say. And even if we could say something good, we're not going to do it. And you could say something good. You definitely could say something good. You could at least say they were so kind they tolerated us not paying the it's not rent. Sorry, I keep using this word rent, but paying the service fee, the service donation. And there are many places in India, those of you who don't know, but Gambhira and other places, whoever you see in some of these places doing the service in Jagannath Puri, it's a contract that is put up for bid every so many years, that who wants to do the service in Gambhira, and they will make a bid for that. And in some of these places, the government is even in control of these things. So this is called the right of service. Who has the right to do the service? So that's all the $25 a month was for. The right of serving His Divine Grace in these 2 rooms. Now, as a rental, as an apartment rental, as a room rental, in Vrindavan, well, those rooms are worth a lot more than $25 a month, let me tell you. A lot more. So I point to this, that if the Goswami family was only interested in money, then they could have rented those rooms to somebody else for a lot more than $25 a month, a lot more than 1,000 rupees a month. But the fact that they didn't proves that they were not just interested in the money. And I mean, if anybody in this world should, not criticize anybody about money, it should be ISKCON. When you go to the Krishna Balaram Temple, you can't hardly get through the door without getting hit up for a donation, crossing a book table, a Mahaprasadam table, a Go Seva table, a Guru Kul Seva table, a Seva table, a Deity Seva table. The only thing that's free in that place is holy water.
Charanamrita.
Charanamrita.
Yeah.
And and I have seen for years, anyway, money is not the most important thing to this Goswami family. But certainly anybody who's trying to maintain an ashram or a temple, or even their families, and that family has been there for 365 years.
Mm.
And their maintenance comes out of there. I would wonder what stipend the pujari gets at Krishna Balaram Temple. What stipend does the temple president gets? What's the restaurant arrangement? What's the what's the arrangement? And how much money the Sankirtan brahmacharis in India pocket from going out on Sankirtan life membership and the works? Any of you who served in India know that that's a big industry right there, you see. Yeah. Well, so people, money is everywhere. Actually, a couple years ago, I can't remember, 75 crore was embezzled from the Mayapur Vrindavan Trust. And that worked out to $15 million. $15 million was embezzled from a trust, and it took them a couple years to even notice the money was gone. Yeah, it's like the pot calling the kettle black, or the needle pointing at the sieve and saying, "Oh, you have so." Well, no, it's the other way around, isn't it? It's like the sieve pointing at the needle and saying the needle has a hole, and the sieve has 1,000 holes. So anyway, so there's always been much that they're only after the money, and this is a way exaggerated kind of a propaganda. All right, but worst of all, the Goswamis just got tired of the relationship. The relationship was it wasn't reciprocal. Mm-hmm. It wasn't reciprocal. It was, and it's a small place. It's a small place, so the pujaris would come in, not even say, good morning, if you would, what to speak of. My obeisances, Prabhu, some humility, showing a little bit of respect. Again, in ISKCON, if you forget to offer your obeisances to a sannyasi, you can find yourself thrown out in the street or something, So, after
one thing I wanted to add there was that whoever was coming down from Krishna Balaram Temple were also taking donations in Prabhupada's room as well. So they were making donations, and they weren't paying money as rent previously.
Yeah, during that 2-year period, the pujaris are receiving donations, taking those donations out of the temple, taking them back to, in most cases, not back to the Krishna Balaram temple, but back to their own little metal trunk in the ashram. I mean, this is a habit that's been going on from day one in India with the brahmacharis from the village. So they're collecting money in the temple and taking it back. So anyway, let's get to the crux of the story. So what was the year? 2006.
Yeah.
In 2006, Nirmal Chandra Goswami, who was the head of the family there, he has 5 sons. They were all married. And let me just mention before we get into that final part of the story that in the last days of Srila Prabhupada's presence in this world, Nirmal Chandra Goswami and his wife, they came to visit Prabhupada at Radha Damodara, and Prabhupada was in the bed, of course, and it was his disappearance pastimes. And the wife was pregnant. Now, they had already 4 sons, and Srila Prabhupada knew all the children. He knew the family very, very well. So Nirmal Chandra and his wife come to see Prabhupada, and she is like in her 7th month of pregnancy. Mm. And Prabhupada says to her in the course of the darshan, when your son is born, name him Krishna Balaram. So in those days, they had, particularly in the Vrindavan in the village, they had no way of taking some kind of a scan or something, and understanding that there was going to be a male or a female child. Mm-hmm. So Prabhupada's departure in November, and then I believe it was in December, then she gave birth to a male child, And they named the child Krishna Balaram. Now, all you mothers and fathers out there in the Hare Krishna movement and Prabhupada disciples, can you imagine that the wife would be pregnant and Prabhupada would then predict, of course it's a 50-50, but predict your son will be born and then name your son? Huh? Then what would that be to you? Oh, just an ordinary thing. Okay. Prabhupada named our son before he was even born? Come on.
Before we knew he was going to be a son?
You'd be saying he's the next Acharya of the Sampradaya. He came down from Goloka directly. I mean, it would be such a happy event for you that how could you not want to read into it some special meaning? That this child is special, or at least it's a special blessing. This child is so blessed, huh? Come on, what parent out there wouldn't just be ecstatic for that to have happened?
Right.
Well, let me put it in simple Confucius language. ISKCON doesn't give a rat's ass about what happened if it didn't happen to them. But the fact is, Srila Prabhupada did name this child before he was even born. But yet, that doesn't mean anything to them. And he is, Krishna Balaram, is the principal manager, excuse me, of the Radha Damodara temple. He's not the head pujari, but he is the principal manager that takes care of all the finances and deals with all the management and all these things, and has gone over 50 times to Lucknow to attend the court case, which ISKCON has postponed over 50 times. 50 times. And I'll get to that in a minute. There's a reason for that. So anyway, backing up to 2006, finally, Nirmal Chandra was just tired of dealing with these people and everything. And the rooms had just gone through a renovation. About every 8 to 10 years, they require a major renovation. The paint falls off the walls, etc. And so everything was taken out of the rooms during a month period where there was a heavy renovation going on. And as soon as the renovation was over, he put a lock on the door. And then devotees started arriving from the Krishna Balaram temple, and they found that the door was locked. So the next thing wasn't the court case. The next thing was a physical, violent riot. What is the solution? There's obviously a problem between the management of the Radha Damodar, of the Radha Damodar temple and ISKCON. So what is ISKCON's response? They send a team of about 25 devotees down there to try and strong-arm the situation. Was that ever a mistake? They actually got their butt beat pretty well. There were sticks flying, dhotis flying, guys running around their copins. It was a terrible scene. Then the next step, ISKCON rushes off to Mathura and files a lawsuit against Sri Sri Radha Damodara Thakura, a lawsuit to sue for ownership of the rooms. Not for sue for right of seva, sue for ownership of the rooms. Second very, very bad mistake. But the very court case reads, I've seen the documents. ISKCON versus Sri Sri Radha Damodara Thakura. Now I can tell you, regardless of what problem would have possibly could have arrived, Srila Prabhupada's solution would have been to send some of his senior men there to discuss with the Goswami and to resolve the problem. There is no way that in 1,000 years Prabhupada would have ever launched a court case against either the deity, the temple management, the Goswami family, or anything. He would have sent down a personal representative or two to talk this out, and then the next time he came to Vrindavan, if If the solution had not been solved, for sure he would go there and solve the problem himself.
Mm-hmm.
Never, under any circumstances, would he have launched a court case. So the court case was then launched. Well, Nirmal Chandra Goswami knew exactly what these people were going to do. He had their pulse. And he had his counter statements all ready and prepared. And here we are in the 13th year. Now, 13th year court cases in India, it's not as cheap as some of you people might be thinking. Thousands and thousands of dollars has been spent from ISKCON fighting a court case which they are destined and doomed to lose. Now, some of them will say, well, how do you know that? How can you say that with such confidence? Well, I say, well, for one thing, the lawyers for Radha Damodara have never applied for a postponement. ISKCON has applied for over 50 postponements, and this is why the case is going on for so long, is they keep postponing and postponing, and you get about 4 postponements a year or so, and they're up to over 50 postponements, whereas the Radha Damodara lawyers, people, they're ready to just let the court decide. So Indian courts are not like they are in the United States for sure, or like many countries. They have their own way, and in the lower courts, you can play many tricks. You can even do bribing and these things. But as things move towards the higher courts, it's just the law. And there is no way that based on a history that, oh, well, we used to rent these rooms, and, oh, well, we used to pay for the right of service. Based on that, oh, well, we should own these rooms. There's just no way that that is ever going to happen. So when it goes to its final throes and it's reaching that time, it's only because India is so backed up in the court systems, but when it finally gets there for the final judgment, they lose. Now, they, meaning ISKCON, loses. Now, along the way, at 3 different times, I have tried to mediate between ISKCON and Radha Damodara for a reasonable settlement and etc. 2 times, ISKCON refused the deal. And the 3rd time, the Radha Damodara devotees refused the settlement. And they decided, forget it, let it ride to the Supreme Court, because we are absolutely tired and disgusted with dealing with their mentality. So the first time, everything worked out very well, but Radha Damodara devotees made it very clear that nothing in that temple can be owned by anybody. They own everything. And that would mean whatever little furnitures were in Prabhupada's room, which were a table, a chair, an old wooden bed with strings for the rope beds. Yeah? Mm-hmm. ISKCON said, no, we must own it. We must own everything. So the whole deal fell apart. And then the second time there was some other, they refused to give any goodwill. And I had suggested that they should give a goodwill donation for all the trouble they've caused over the years and the court case fees and everything that they've had to pay up for 20 lakhs. And they were crying, oh no, 20 lakhs, this is so much money. And then I found out that year, a 1-bedroom apartment in the MVT, the Mayapur Vrindavan Trust guest house, cost 95 lakhs. And they were crying about giving 20 lakhs as a goodwill. And just a few weeks ago, I happened to know that I believe it was a 2-bedroom apartment sold at the MVT for 1.6 crore. So that's over $250,000. Okay, I don't know the exact amount, but they were crying about a fraction of that price for creating goodwill. But more importantly, I was saying, listen, I will show you what it means to have a proper relationship with this family of people. You have demonized them, and I have to tell you, they're not demons. In fact, well, they've never done even a fraction of the abominations that have occurred in ISKCON, from murder to child molesting to drug dealing, money laundering. Guys, how many Prabhus out there, men and women, have been married 3, 4, and even 5. And I know some Prabhupada disciple ladies have been married 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
6 times, 5 times, 3 times. This family, they never did any of this nonsense. They didn't kind of figure out what the hell child molesting is. What is that? What are you talking about? It was hard to even explain to them what some of these things were. So, through hook and crook, ISKCON has been trying to dominate this case. And at one point, they filed an affidavit with the court in Lucknow that the family was being demoniacally influenced by some Swami who had been kicked out of ISKCON because he wanted to be a guru, and he was just a big rascal, and he was a demon, and he was misguiding this family. And the funny thing is, it's like, what the hell does that got to do with the case? The case is who owns the rooms and whatever you're whoever. But it turns out that the demoniac Swami was me. And this was just, I was reading this thing and I was like, well, who is this rascal? He's done all these things and this and that. And then at the end, there's my name, right? So I said, okay, guys, you know what? Let's play ball, right? So Bhima from Bombay, there are 3 people involved in this court case. And I must have to say that I don't know how many GBCs there are and how many senior devotees in ISKCON guide ISKCON and run ISKCON today. But I know only a fraction of them are even aware that this court case exists. And you would think that it would be such an important thing to file a lawsuit against the family, which Prabhupada knew so well, and the deities and the temple and everything. You'd think, wow, this is big. How can this not be known by people? But most people devotees don't have any idea that there is a court case. And I said the other day, I don't think more than 30% of the GBC even know that this court case exists. So it's just so shameful. So, but the 3 people who run the court case are Bhima from Bombay, Radhanath Swami, I don't know where his base is, but
Chowpatty, Mumbai.
Yeah, also India.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't know. And Gopal Krishna Maharaj at Delhi. These are the 3 persons that decide anything in the case. So it was always Bhima that I was discussing with when trying to mitigate some settlement between the Radha Damodara temple and ISKCON. So it was always Bhima. So Bhima comes one day to see me, and we discuss in the beginning, the first time when we started discussing a settlement. And I said, Bhima, what's up? You guys submit an affidavit against me, and other than spelling my name correctly, nothing in that affidavit was even remotely true. I mean, I'm no angel, but I did not do any of the things that you accused me of. And you're trying to use this as some way of swaying the judge. I said, what is this? He goes, well, it's a court battle. Don't take it personally. And I said, oh, okay. I'm glad you feel that way. Because we just submitted an affidavit to the court which lists every criminal case around the world that ISKCON has been involved in directly. Money laundering, drug trafficking, murder, over 500 cases of child molesting. So
prostitution,
all these things that have come actually into the court and have a registered court number either in West Virginia or California or Texas or wherever. I said, an affidavit has just been submitted to the courts to show that how much criminal activity goes on inside ISKCON. And he goes, what? What? I said, don't take it personally. You know, ridiculous, you know. So anyway, it goes all the way. So it was very, very bad. And so then they decided, okay, then finally Nirmal Chandra Goswami passed away 2 years ago. And then they thought, okay, the old man is gone. Now we're going to go in there, waggle some money around in front of the kids, in front of his sons. They'll take the money and we got it, right? Well, they were surprised because that wasn't going to happen. They took it even as a further insult. And they went there. Gopal Krishna Maharaj went there with somebody else. And they tried to tempt them with some money. Oh, you know, we give you some money and you can send your son to college and this and that and all this kind of stuff to get a better job. And they took it as just further insult and they rejected their appeal. And at that point they told him, whatever we're going to do, Narasingha Maharaj, you talk to him. So I tried one more time. And this time they were, are you still there, Giri? Are you still there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I think we got cut off. Anyway, we'll see how that goes on the video. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure the people who are listening to this by now are sleeping. It's not very, very interesting, but it sure the heck is embarrassing. And the loss is going to be, well, Srila Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir will not be lost. When the whole court case is over, the Radha Damodara temple is turning over the management of the worship of His Divine Grace in the Bhajan Kutir to myself. And we're going back to the original meetings with Garga Muni, myself and Riksharaj, although Riksharaj is no longer living. And we're going to reestablish the worship of His Divine Grace in His Bhajan Kutir according to the instructions that He gave.
Right.
So in that way, nothing will be lost. But a certain privilege that has been an abused privilege that ISKCON has held for 40-some years, that will be lost. That will be lost. All of Srila Prabhupada's disciples will be not only welcomed, but encouraged to come and take an active part in the service of His Divine Grace in the Bhajan Kutir, as well as second, third, and fifth, and 10th generations going forward. But it will not just simply be at the whim of ISKCON or anyone from ISKCON, what they want. It is a privilege, and they will approach it so, as a privilege, or they won't be welcome there. But I don't think some of these people are going to miss it at all. I don't think they'll miss it at all. I think it's more of a burden for them, but then it's just a big ego thing that they can't give it up. Well, when it finally gets to the Supreme Court, they will have to give it up. But the service will not be lost. The service will not stop. In fact, it's guaranteed that the service is going to increase in quality, because the court case itself has presented much of an obstacle to what should and could be done to improve the service there. The details, well, being that it is a court case, I'm not speaking out all the details either. But the main thing is just to inform you, if you're watching this, that there is this embarrassing court case where ISKCON is suing the Radha Damodara deities, not the corporation or some kind of thing like that. They're suing the deities, trying to take possession of rooms that were built by Man Singh. Man Singh is the commander-in-chief of Akbar's army. He built the Radha Govinda temple for Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami requested him a little later on if he would build a temple for Sri Jiva, and he built that temple for Radha Damodar, which include the rooms that Srila Prabhupada lived in later years. So those rooms have been part of that temple since they were built by Man Singh. And the temple has all the paperwork to prove it. So there's no way in any court anywhere in the world that the ownership of those rooms would be passed on to some other institution or some other individual or anything of the kind. You see, right. So it's basically a slam dunk. And that's why ISKCON keeps postponing. It's just like postpone the death sentence. And in the end, the sentence will be carried out and they will lose. Mm-hmm. But what they've lost the most is they've lost all goodwill.
Yeah.
All goodwill. And, it's a shame to see it happen that way. I have had some of my friends who are GBCs and sannyasis and, friends or acquaintances, at least, well, old godbrothers, put it that way, would say, it would be much better if you were in charge. And I say, we'll just tell them, we'll just drop the case and we'll just carry on and everything will be fine and the service will be going on and Prabhupada's disciples and grand disciples and grand disciples, everyone will be welcome to come and serve Prabhupada. Let's do it now. Mm-hmm. But then these three, as you say, gentlemen who are running the case, they want to own everything. They want to be the controllers of everything. So it's really shameful.
Well, two of those gentlemen came to see the Goswamis a couple of years ago, claiming complete ignorance of the case. They said, we don't know what's going on. This is the first we've heard about it. These are the GBCs. How would Srila Prabhupada feel if his two GBCs in Vrindavan didn't know there was a court case against Radha Damodara?
Well, that was a big lie, you see. They just didn't want to, they were just being hit with the facts. I'm aware of that meeting. Actually, that meeting took place in my rooms. I wasn't there. But it was upstairs in my rooms, and they sat and had the meeting. And they were just playing like, oh, really? We didn't know this, and we didn't know that. And these are the three people who are the behind the scenes. The lawyers are up front. You see, the lawyers are up front. And the lawyers, well, who are the lawyers? Well, they chant 16 rounds.
Oh, they must be good. Right?
Oh, the big hook, you know. Here comes ISKCON. Quick, grab a bead bag, you know. You know, they chant 16 rounds. It wouldn't matter if they were chanting 116 rounds. I mean, they're simply wasting ISKCON's money. Taking money, making money, taking money, making money, and saying, oh, yes, we have strong case, we have strong case, we have strong case. They have no case. And the proof they have no case, and why do you keep postponing and postponing and postponing 50 times? Now, in the United States, England, and places, you can't get away with that kind of trickery. But in India, Your Honor, we postpone, the lawyer has an ingrown toenail. Okay, postpone 4 months, postpone 6 months. Oh, Your Honor, it's, my father died this week. I'm sorry. Okay, postpone. You can get away with murder in the courtroom, so to speak, you know. But finally it reaches a level where all shenanigans are put aside and the law is looked at, and India has really clear laws when you get to that state, and there's no way that the ownership is going to pass to somebody else based on 100 rupee stamp paper or the fact that they used to do a puja there. And then, well, I'll tell you, then when the rooms were opened back up, you see, the day they were opened, the court had decided Radha Damodara will do the service for 1 month, then ISKCON will do the service for 1 month, and this will continue until the court case is finished. So the first month was given to Radha Damodara. That's also an indication, you see. So then the deity of Srila Prabhupada was put back in the room. I should have got that picture.
I'll put there's a link to an article with this. I'll put the link below.
That was also important, you see. And at that point, I flew up from South India, and because the room and the service had stopped for 1 year. And so finally the service was going to begin. Why did it stop for 1 year? Because ISKCON filed this court case. There was no service to Srila Prabhupada for 1 full year. So then Goswami called me up and said, now the court order is the service can begin again for Srila Prabhupada. Please come. I jumped on an airplane, flew up there to start inauguration of the service. Not a single person came down from ISKCON for inaugurating the service of Srila Prabhupada again in his Bhajan Kutir. And I should have got the picture ready, but we have those pictures of myself and Tripurari Maharaj, who happened to be in Vrindavan at the time, carrying the deity of Srila Prabhupada from the altar at Radha Damodara, carrying the deity down, establishing the deity in his room. And then I made the first offering, and there were like 500 sweets were offered, and sweets were distributed, and flowers and artiques were performed, and all this stuff. And not a single person, not a single a person from ISKCON came for this event because it wasn't under their control, which is so sad. Now, there are other things about control, which they have turned their back on and walked away from because they are not able to control them. No, it's really, really sad. So anyway, there is a case, and it will end, and they will lose. But the good news is the service of Srila Prabhupada, once it's out of their control freak mentality, is going to improve significantly. It's going to improve significantly, and it's going to improve along the lines which His Divine Grace specified in 1977. It will be different. Those of you who have gone there many times, you will mark a certain difference, and that difference, that might shock you, but it only will shock you because you're just accustomed to a deviant system of worshiping and serving His Divine Grace that's been going on for years and years and years. So when the court case ends, that ends also. And the service will continue for many, 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 many generations. It will not stop. It will never stop. All right. There were things we were going to read. Srila Prabhupada wrote letters. At one particular point, Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish the Rupanuga Paravidyapitam on a small piece of property that was adjacent to the temple. And he wanted his disciples to be able to live there and serve Radha Damodara with no disturbance to the Goswami family whatsoever. Do you have that one letter, Yuri, or two letters there?
Yeah, it says, I do not wish to disturb the position of the Sevites of Radha Damodar temple, but simply if I am given the facility to live there with my disciples, it will be my pleasure to serve their lordships, Sri Sri Radha Damodar, to my best capacity. That's a letter to Nripan Goswami, who was the brother of Nirmal Chandra's father, I believe.
Right, he was a brother.
Yeah.
Here's a book that we published some years ago called Sri Damodar Katha. And, there's Prabhupada's picture down. Where is that? Down the bottom there. So, on the back, do you have that quote? You can read this. This is from, it's a verse.
I don't have the book here. I can read it from there.
No, I'll read it. It says, this is a sloka that Srila Prabhupada wrote, and it's in the Mangalacharna of the book that he wrote called Gita Gan. So Srila Prabhupada writes here that Vrindavan is a charming, beautiful place, and situated there in the grove known as Seva Kunja is the sacred temple of Sri Sri Radha Damodara. I take the lotus feet of these deities as my only shelter, and I petition them to be kind upon me and guide me to life's ultimate goal. Parentheses. But my disciples, they file a suitcase, a lawsuit case in a court and sue those deities whose lotus feet are my only shelter and whom I petition to be kind upon me and guide me to life's ultimate goal. I mean, when I pointed this out to Bhima and particularly to him and asked him, share this. Look what Srila Prabhupada says. Now look what you have done. But it was like water off a duck's back. Mm-hmm. No response, like cold-hearted, you know. Am I thinking it's inconceivable? How can you do that? You know, Srila Prabhupada had taken shelter of Radha Damodara before even the remotest idea of a Krishna Balaram temple ever manifested in his thinking. Mm-hmm. Now think about this, folks. Srila Prabhupada is praying for the shelter of Radha Damodara. He is in the shelter of Radha Damodara. He's writing some of these things in letters while he's in America in 26 2nd Avenue in New York in those first very difficult months. He's writing back to the Goswami family. Oh, how are you? How is Mata? All these things. How are the children? You see, it's his lifeline to the reality he knew before he came to this hellhole known as New York City in the Western world, right? So that is so important for him, the family, the deities. But then he establishes his own institution, he makes his own temple, and he goes, you know what, I'm not interested anymore in the shelter. Radha Damodara, I'm out of here. I got my own deities. Do you think so?
No.
I don't think so. You can't imagine, I don't know who can imagine, how disturbed he would be. Or let's put it this way, how disturbed he is that these shenanigans are going on. And I've told them right up to the last negotiation when it failed, I said, it's as simple as this. Just drop the court case. No money, no nothing. Drop the court case and then come down to Radha Damodara and offer what service you would like to do for Srila Prabhupada and how you would like to do it. Just drop the case. And they said, no, we'll take our chances. And I said, well, your chances are you're going to lose. And they said, well, we'll keep postponing. Okay, have a nice day. And that's where we left it off 2 years ago in Kartik. It'll be 3 years this year in Kartik since the last talks for a negotiation. It just came down to that. Just drop the case. And no strings attached. You get no strings attached, but you will have service to Srila Prabhupada. But without strings attached. They couldn't do it. They couldn't bring themselves to do it.
Too much ego.
Too much ego, too much desire for control.
Mm-hmm.
Control. And this has just led to embarrassment. What can be done? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Prabhus and Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, nothing. Talking to these people is like talking to the door. It's just nothing. They're beyond reason. Nothing can happen except it goes to its final days and they lose. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, I wasn't even enthusiastic to make this, but it had come up in conversations, and more than one person suggested, why don't you just tell everybody what's going on, at least devotees.
This is more of a public information video.
Yeah.
Because devotees, like you said, they don't know about this. Many of the devotees are shocked when they hear about this.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of things probably going on in the world. How many people knew the 75 lakhs crores was embezzled from the Mayapur Vrindavan Trust? I mean, I just gave that as an example. I'm not going to get into, here's the latest update on this court case and that court case and this scandal and that scandal. In one sense, I could care less. But this one involves me personally.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It involves me personally. Even during the 1 month service, 1 month back and forth between ISKCON and Radha Damodara, I'm in charge of the Radha Damodara month. And it just goes back and forth. And that just is such a disturbance for the quality of service. It's just, but I can tell you, every time we take over the service, we start with a Maha cleanup. And Prabhupada's rooms are filthy beyond belief. Because the people they send down there don't do proper cleaning. They're just down there. They don't even want to be down there. It's like a punishment. you're going to Radha Damodara this month to do the service to Prabhupada. No, not me, not me. Yes, you, go. It's not like, oh, me, such an opportunity. Now, happily, I will say that there are some devotees, individuals on their own from ISKCON. None of them are Prabhupada's direct disciples, but disciples of Prabhupada's disciples. Like there's one devotee particularly from Russia, I believe. Russia, he's a disciple of Indra Swami. There's a few ladies, and they are so dedicated to trying to keep the quality of the service up and everything. But they are not the pujaris. They just come down with flowers or try to make the offering nicer or just little things that they can do. Mm-hmm. But that's not enough. You know, their service is much appreciated. And you know what? Those same people, they come down even when it's the Radha Damodara temple month to carry on the service. They are servants without borders, so to speak, you know. And it's very admirable. Admirable? Is that the word admirable? It's very, very laudable what they do. And that's to be appreciated. But the management behind them that's driving this whole thing is disgraceful. Yeah. So it's that story over and over again. Countries suffer because of leadership. The ordinary people suffer. Again, it's the same thing. It's the fault is not the sincere devotee who wants to simply serve. It goes to the top, to the heads, to the leaders, who I've never seen down there sweeping, cleaning, making an offering an artik, or nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's what they call, I never call, but they call the rank and file devotees. Personally, I don't think there's such a thing as the rank and file devotees. It's such a... Ugh. All devotees are special. Huh? Anyway, let's leave it at that. If the information was, at least you'll know, if you've heard what I've said, in the end, you'll know why things have changed, and you will know why, well, there will be a few things happen which I'm not mentioning now. And then you'll know why those few things happened. You see. All right. Giri, anything else?
No, Guru. That's
All right.
it.
Hare Krishna.